Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the cargo manifest on his tablet. The numbers had to be perfect. Every crate, every container, every piece of equipment that moved through New Babylon Station had to be tracked and recorded. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The space station hummed with activity around him. Aliens from dozens of worlds walked past his desk in the main cargo bay. Some were tall and thin like the blue-skinned Altarians. Others were short and round like the furry Bengans. A few looked almost human except for their silver eyes or pointed ears. Jake had been working here for 2 years now, and he still found it amazing to see so many different species in one place. New Babylon was the biggest trade station in the Kepler sector. Ships came here from all over the galaxy to buy and sell goods. The station was huge, with over 50 levels and hundreds of docking ports. More than 50,000 beings lived and worked here at any given time. It was like a small city floating in space. Jake's job was simple enough. He supervised the loading and unloading of cargo ships. He made sure the right boxes went to the right places. He checked that dangerous materials were stored properly. He filled out forms and sent reports to his boss. It was not glamorous work, but it paid well and kept him busy. A group of Kethran traders walked past his station. They were reptilian beings with green scales and yellow eyes. Jake nodded politely as they passed. Most aliens were friendly enough, though some kept to themselves. The diversity never stopped fascinating him. He was so focused on his work that he did not notice the new arrival in the docking bay. A single figure moved through the crowds like a shadow. It was tall and moved with predatory grace. Its skin seemed to shift color slightly, helping it blend in with the surroundings. This was a Kethvar, one of the most feared hunters in the galaxy. The Kethvar's name was Zixthara. It had traveled far to reach this station, driven by a contract that promised a fortune in credits. The target was a human named Jake Morrison, a cargo supervisor who supposedly had access to information that could change the balance of power in this sector of space. Zixthara studied the crowded cargo bay through slitted yellow eyes. The Kethvar were born hunters. Their bodies were perfectly designed for killing. They stood 8 feet tall with powerful muscles under their scaled skin. Their claws could cut through steel and their teeth could crush bone, but their greatest weapon was their patience. The hunter had spent days learning about Jake Morrison. The human worked regular shifts in the cargo bay. He lived alone in a small apartment on level 37. He had no family on the station and few friends. He seemed like an easy target for someone with Zixthara's skills, but something felt wrong. Zixthara had hunted many targets over the years, and most showed fear when death approached. Animals sensed predators instinctively. Even civilized beings had deep instincts that warned them of danger. Yet this human seemed calm and aware, as if he had faced danger before. Jake continued his work, moving between cargo containers and checking his list. He paused occasionally to speak with dock workers or answer questions from ship captains. His manner was professional but friendly. He treated everyone with the same respect, whether they were human or alien. The morning shift was almost over when Jake felt someone watching him. It was a subtle feeling, like an itch between his shoulder blades. He had learned to trust that feeling during his time as a soldier. Without looking up from his tablet, he casually scanned the area around his workstation. There, near a stack of shipping containers, he saw a tall figure that seemed to blur at the edges. Jake's training kicked in immediately. He recognized the signs of active camouflage technology. Someone with military-grade equipment was watching him, and they were trying very hard not to be seen. Jake kept working as if nothing had changed, but his mind was racing. Who would want to spy on a cargo supervisor? He dealt with shipping manifests and inventory reports, not state secrets. Unless someone thought he knew something he did not actually know, Zixthara was impressed despite itself. Most prey never noticed they were being watched. The human's awareness suggested military training or combat experience. This would make the hunt more interesting. The Kethvar Honor Code demanded that targets be given a chance to defend themselves. A true hunt was not an execution. The prey must know death was coming and have opportunity to fight back. This was what separated the Kethvar from common assassins. But first, Zixthara needed to study the target more carefully. The human moved with confidence through the cargo bay. He knew where everything was and how the systems worked. Other workers came to him with questions and problems. Clearly, Jake Morrison was good at his job. The lunch break arrived and Jake put down his tablet. He walked toward the food court on level 15, where dozens of restaurants served cuisine from across the galaxy. Zixithera followed at a distance, moving through the crowds like smoke. The food court was packed with beings from many worlds. The air was filled with the smells of cooking and the sounds of a dozen languages. Jake got in line at a simple human-style restaurant that served basic meals. He ordered a sandwich and found a table near the large windows that looked out into space. Zixithera watched from across the court, hidden behind a group of tall Centauri merchants. The human ate slowly and seemed to be thinking about something. He stared out at the stars with an expression that the Kethvar found difficult to read. Other humans might have seen loneliness or homesickness in Jake's face. But Zixithera saw something else. There was a sadness there, but also strength. This was someone who had seen difficult times and survived them. The hunter felt a strange respect for its target. After lunch, Jake returned to work. The afternoon brought new ships and fresh cargo to process. He worked steadily, checking manifests and directing loading crews. The routine was comfortable and familiar. As the day shift ended, Jake gathered his things and prepared to leave. Tomorrow would bring more ships and more cargo. It was a simple life, but it was his life. He had no idea that someone in the shadows was planning to end it very soon. Zixithera watched the human leave the cargo bay and disappear into the station's corridors. Soon, very soon, it would be time for the hunt to begin in earnest. The predator's claws extended slightly at the thought. The next morning came with the usual bustle of activity in New Babylon Station. Jake arrived at his workstation early, as was his habit. The cargo bay was already alive with the sounds of machinery and voices in dozens of languages. 3 new ships had docked overnight and their crews were eager to unload their goods. Zixithera had not slept. The Kethvar needed very little rest and preferred to hunt during the quiet hours when their prey felt safest. The hunter had spent the night learning the patterns of the station, mapping escape routes and identifying potential complications. Everything had to be perfect for the honor challenge. Jake checked his schedule and saw that today would be especially busy. A large convoy from the Outer Rim was expected to arrive before noon. The ships carried rare minerals and exotic goods that would need special handling. It would be a long day, but Jake enjoyed the challenge of managing complex operations. The morning passed quickly as Jake coordinated the unloading of the overnight arrivals. A Altarian freighter carried medical supplies that needed to be kept at specific temperatures. A Bengan merchant vessel held delicate artwork that required careful handling. Each cargo load had its own requirements and regulations. Zixithera watched from various hiding places around the cargo bay. The hunter was fascinated by the human's efficiency and calm manner. Even when problems arose, Jake handled them without panic or anger. When a loading crane malfunctioned, he quickly arranged for repairs. When 2 cargo crews got into an argument over docking rights, he resolved the dispute fairly. This was not the behavior Zixithera expected from its target. The contract described Jake Morrison as a low-level employee who had stumbled onto valuable information. But the human showed leadership skills and earned respect from beings of many species. There was more to this target than the contract suggested. The Central Plaza announcement echoed through the station at exactly noon. It was time for the weekly trade negotiations where merchants and buyers gathered to make deals for the coming week. The plaza would be crowded with hundreds of beings from across the galaxy. Jake saved his work and locked his tablet in his desk drawer. The trade negotiations were always interesting to watch, even though they had nothing to do with his job. The politics and economics of interstellar commerce fascinated him. Plus, he had 30 minutes for lunch and the plaza had good food vendors. Zixithera followed Jake through the corridors toward the Central Plaza. The time had come to issue the honor challenge. According to Kethvar tradition, the hunter must announce its presence and give the target a chance to prepare for combat. It was not an ambush or assassination, but a formal duel with ancient rules. The Central Plaza was the heart of New Babylon Station. It was a vast circular space with a transparent dome that offered views of the stars beyond. The floor was made of polished metal that reflected the lights from dozens of shops and restaurants around the edges. A raised platform in the center served as a stage for announcements and ceremonies. Hundreds of beings filled the plaza. Merchants displayed samples of their goods on portable tables. Buyers examined products and negotiated prices. Translators worked to bridge language gaps between species. The noise was tremendous but somehow organized. Jake found a spot near one of the food vendors and ordered a simple meal. He enjoyed watching the crowd and trying to identify different alien species. Some he recognized from his work in the cargo bay. Others were new to him, probably visitors from distant worlds he had never heard of. Zixthara moved through the crowd like a shadow. The hunter's camouflage technology helped it blend in with the surroundings, but active concealment was not necessary here. The plaza was so crowded that one more tall figure would not be noticed. The moment arrived. Zixthara reached the edge of the crowd and drew its ceremonial plasma blade. The weapon hummed to life with a sound that cut through the noise of the plaza. The blade glowed with blue-white energy that cast strange shadows on nearby walls. Several beings near Zixthara noticed the weapon and stepped back nervously. A Kethavar with a drawn blade meant serious business. Word spread quickly through the crowd and a circle of empty space formed around the hunter. Zixthara raised the blade above its head and spoke in a voice that carried across the plaza. The words were in the ancient Kethavar language, but translation devices quickly converted them to common speech. I claim the right of honor combat. Let the prey prepare for battle or face death without glory. The traditional challenge sent a wave of excitement through the crowd. Few beings had ever witnessed a formal Kethavar hunt. Some moved back to give the warriors room to fight. Others pressed forward to get a better view of the coming battle. Zixthara began to scan the crowd with its yellow eyes. The hunter looked for the familiar face of its target. Jake Morrison should be somewhere in this mass of beings, probably wondering if he was the prey being challenged. Then Zixthara saw him. Jake stood near a food vendor about 50 meters away. The human was not running or hiding as most prey would do. Instead, he was looking directly at the Kethavar with an expression of recognition and something that might have been sadness. In that instant, memories flooded back to Zixthara's mind like a dam bursting. The Battle of Proxima 7 3 years ago during the Border War, the ambush that caught both human and Kethavar forces by surprise, the burning dropship and the smell of smoke and death. Zixthara remembered being trapped under twisted metal, wounded and helpless as enemy fire rained down around the crash site. Most warriors would have been left to die in such chaos, but this human, this same Jake Morrison, had risked his own life to pull the injured Kethavar from the wreckage. The memory was crystal clear now. Jake carrying the wounded alien across open ground while plasma bolts exploded around them, Jake dragging Zixthara into a damaged bunker, and using his own medical supplies to stop the bleeding. Jake staying with the enemy warrior until other Kethavar forces could provide rescue. Before leaving, Jake had offered water and spoken in broken Kethavar language. His pronunciation was terrible, but the meaning was clear. Enemy today, maybe friend tomorrow. Then he had smiled and disappeared back into the battle. Zixthara had survived that day because of Jake Morrison's courage and compassion. The human had saved a life without expecting anything in return. It was an act of honor that transcended species and politics. Now that same human stood in the plaza, waiting calmly for the challenge that would end his life. Jake's face showed he recognized his former battlefield companion. He knew why the Kethavar was here, and he was not afraid. The plasma blade trembled in Zixthara's hand as the full weight of the situation became clear. Honor demanded that the contract be fulfilled, but honor also demanded that life debts be repaid. The hunter was caught between two sacred duties that could not both be satisfied. For the first time in its long career, the perfect predator was frozen with indecision. The plasma blade slowly dimmed in Zixthara's hand. The Kethavar warrior stepped backward through the crowd, which parted nervously around the tall alien. Without a word of explanation, the hunter disappeared into the maze of corridors that connected the plaza to the rest of the station. Jake watched the retreat with mixed emotions. He had recognized his old battlefield companion immediately, but seeing Zixthara here could only mean one thing. Someone wanted Jake dead badly enough to hire one of the galaxy's most feared predators. The crowd in the plaza buzzed with confusion and disappointment. A formal Kethavar challenge was rare entertainment, and many had hoped to witness actual combat. Vendors began calling out their wares again as normal activity resumed. Within minutes, it was as if nothing had happened. Jake finished his lunch slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. 3 years had passed since Proxima 7. But he remembered that battle clearly. He had pulled the wounded Kethvar from a burning ship because it was the right thing to do. Enemy or not, no one deserved to die trapped and helpless. He also remembered the look in Zixathara's eyes during those brief moments in the bunker. There had been surprise and something like gratitude, emotions Jake had not expected to see in an alien predator. Now those same eyes had looked at him across the plaza with what might have been regret. The afternoon passed slowly as Jake tried to focus on his work. New cargo shipments arrived and needed processing, but his mind kept returning to the morning's events. Why had Zixathara withdrawn from the challenge? The Kethvar were known for their strict honor code. They did not abandon hunts without good reason. As the day shift ended, Jake made a decision. Instead of returning to his apartment, he took a lift to the observation deck on level 60. It was a quiet place where people went to think and watch the stars. If Zixathara wanted to talk, that would be the place to do it. The observation deck was nearly empty at this hour. A few couples sat at tables near the large windows, enjoying drinks and conversation. Jake chose a spot at the far end where he could see both the entrance and the view of space beyond the station. He did not have to wait long. Zixathara appeared at the entrance like a ghost, moving with the silent grace that made the Kethvar such effective hunters. The alien looked around the deck once, then walked directly to Jake's table. "You remember me?" Zixathara said in accented but clear standard speech. Jake nodded. "Hard to forget. You were bleeding pretty badly when I found you in that wreck." The Kethvar sat across from Jake, its large frame making the chair look small. "You saved this warrior's life. Why?" It was a question Jake had asked himself many times over the years. Because it was right. War makes enemies of people who might have been friends in different circumstances. Zixathara studied Jake's face with those unsettling yellow eyes. This warrior owes you a life debt, but this warrior also has a contract to fulfill. "Someone hired you to kill me," Jake said simply. It was not a question. "Yes. A mining consortium believes you possess information about new hyperspace routes. They fear you will sell this knowledge to their competitors." Jake almost laughed. "I'm a cargo supervisor. I don't know anything about hyperspace navigation. I can barely find my way around this station without a map." The Kethvar leaned forward slightly. "Then why do they want you dead?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. Finally, he spoke. "I think I know, but it's not what they told you. I've been documenting something else entirely, something they really don't want exposed." He pulled out a small data pad and placed it on the table between them. "For the past 6 months, I've been tracking cargo that doesn't match its shipping manifests, medical supplies that are actually restraint devices, food shipments that contain sedatives, transport containers designed to hold living beings." Zixathara's eyes narrowed. Slavery. A massive operation spanning multiple sectors. Ships bring in captured beings from outer rim worlds and transport them to buyers in the core systems. They use New Babylon as a transfer point because it's so busy that a few extra cargo containers don't get noticed. The Kethvar was silent for several minutes, processing this information. Slavery was despised by most civilized species, including the Kethvar. It was considered the ultimate dishonor to buy and sell sentient life. "You have proof of these activities?" Zixathara asked. Jake nodded. "Shipping records, manifest discrepancies, even some security footage I managed to copy. Everything is documented, on this pad and backed up in several secure locations. Why have you not reported this to the authorities?" Jake's expression turned bitter. "Because some of the authorities are involved. The consortium has people in the station administration, and probably in the sector government too. If I go through official channels, the evidence will disappear, and so will I." Zixathara sat back in its chair, considering the situation. The honor code was clear about life debts, but it was equally clear about contracts. The warrior was caught between two sacred obligations. "There may be a solution," the Kethvar said slowly. "A way to satisfy both honor and duty." Jake raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "This warrior could stage your death. Make it appear that the contract has been fulfilled while allowing you to escape with a new identity. The consortium would pay the fee and consider the matter closed. It was an interesting idea, but Jake shook his head. Running away won't stop the slavery operation. Innocent beings will continue to suffer while I hide somewhere safe. Then what do you propose? Jake leaned forward, his eyes intense. We work together. You have skills I don't, and I have information you need. Together we might be able to bring down the entire network. Zixthara considered this. Cooperation with a target was not part of traditional Kethvar hunting, but these were not traditional circumstances. It would be dangerous. The consortium will not surrender their profits easily. I know. But during the war, you taught me something about honor. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the safe thing. The alien hunter studied Jake's face again, seeing the determination there. This human had risked his life to save an enemy during battle. Now he was willing to risk it again to save strangers he had never met. Very well, Zixthara said finally. This warrior accepts your proposal. We will hunt the hunters. Jake smiled grimly. Then we better get started. I have a feeling they already know I'm getting close to the truth. As if summoned by his words, Jake's communicator buzzed with an urgent message. His supervisor wanted to see him first thing in the morning about irregularities in his recent reports. The net was closing, but now he would not face it alone. Outside the observation deck windows, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Jake did not sleep well that night. He kept thinking about the meeting with his supervisor scheduled for the morning. Someone in the consortium had clearly noticed his investigation and was moving to stop him. By the time Dawn came to New Babylon Station, he had made his decision. He would not run and hide. Too many innocent lives were at stake. Zixthara had spent the night hunting information instead of prey. The Kethvar's natural stealth abilities and advanced technology made it easy to access restricted areas of the station. By morning, the alien warrior had gathered intelligence that confirmed Jake's suspicions about the slavery operation. The two unlikely partners met in an empty storage room on level 42 before Jake's shift began. Zixthara had chosen the location carefully. It was far from the main corridors and had only one entrance that could be watched easily. The consortium's operation is larger than you suspected, Zixthara reported. This warrior found evidence of at least 12 ships involved in the trafficking network. They process nearly 100 captives per month through this station. Jake felt sick at the numbers. 100 people every month, and I only noticed because I'm obsessive about checking cargo manifests. Your attention to detail may have saved many lives, the Kethvar said. But we must act quickly. This warrior observed unusual activity in the administrative offices last night. New security protocols are being implemented. Jake checked his watch. I need to report to my supervisor in an hour. If I don't show up, they'll know something is wrong. Zixthara nodded. This warrior has a plan. You will attend the meeting as scheduled, but you will not go alone. The Kethvar explained its strategy. Zixthara would use its camouflage technology to remain hidden in the supervisor's office during the meeting. If Jake was in danger, the alien would intervene. Meanwhile, they would use the meeting as an opportunity to gather more evidence. Your supervisor is likely involved in the operation, Zixthara explained. People in his position do not usually call urgent meetings about routine paperwork. He may try to determine how much you know. Jake arrived at his supervisor's office right on time. Martin Webb was a thin human man with nervous habits who had managed the cargo division for 5 years. He looked more uncomfortable than usual as Jake entered the room. Sit down, Morrison, Webb said without looking up from his computer screen. We need to discuss some irregularities in your recent reports. Jake sat in the chair across from Webb's desk. He could not see Zixthara, but he knew the Kethvar was somewhere in the room watching and listening. What kind of irregularities? Jake asked, keeping his voice calm. Webb pulled up several files on his screen. You've been flagging cargo shipments for additional inspection at twice the normal rate. Some of your manifest reviews have caused significant delays for our clients. I was just being thorough, Jake replied. Some of the paperwork seemed incomplete. Thorough. Webb repeated the word as if it tasted bad. Morrison, we're not customs inspectors. Our job is to process cargo efficiently, not to question every detail of every shipment. Jake felt his anger rising but kept it under control. So you want me to ignore discrepancies in the manifests? I want you to focus on moving cargo, not playing detective. Webb finally looked directly at Jake. Some of our clients have complained about the delays. Important clients who bring significant revenue to the station. I understand, Jake said carefully, but if there are safety violations or illegal materials, shouldn't we report them? Webb's expression grew cold. That's not your decision to make. From now on, you will approve all manifests unless there are obvious problems. No more detailed inspections without my direct authorization. Jake realized this was more than just a reprimand. Webb was ordering him to ignore the slavery operation. The supervisor was definitely involved with the consortium. What if I see something that's clearly illegal? Jake pressed. Then you report it to me and I'll decide what action to take. Webb leaned back in his chair. Morrison, I've always considered you a reliable employee. Don't force me to reconsider that assessment. The threat was clear. Jake nodded as if he accepted the new rules. I understand completely. Good. I'm glad we could resolve this matter quickly. Webb turned back to his computer. You can return to your duties now. Jake stood to leave, but Webb spoke again without looking up. Oh, and Morrison? Some new security consultants will be arriving today to review our procedures. Please extend them your full cooperation. Outside Webb's office, Jake walked quickly toward the cargo bay. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. The meeting had confirmed their suspicions, but it had also revealed a new danger. The consortium was bringing in security consultants, which probably meant more professional killers. Zixthera appeared beside him in an empty corridor, the alien's camouflage technology flickering off. This warrior recorded the entire conversation. Your supervisor is clearly part of the criminal network. Did you see anything else while you were in there? Jake asked. The Kethvar nodded grimly. Webb received several coded messages during the meeting. This warrior was able to intercept them. The security consultants are not coming to review procedures. They are coming to eliminate you. Jake stopped walking. How long do we have? Their ship will dock in approximately 6 hours. This warrior recognized some of the names in the messages. These are not honorable hunters like the Kethvar. They are mercenaries who kill for profit without regard for rules or tradition. The situation was escalating rapidly. Jake realized they could not wait any longer to expose the conspiracy. We need to get the evidence to someone in authority who isn't corrupt. This warrior has been considering that problem, Zixthera said. There is a Galactic Council investigation team currently stationed at Kepler Prime, only 2 days from here. They specialize in organized crime across multiple sectors. Jake felt a spark of hope. Can we contact them securely? Not from the station. The consortium likely monitors all communications. But this warrior knows of a private courier service that operates independently. They could carry a message and copies of your evidence to Kepler Prime. How do we reach this courier service without the consortium noticing? Zixthara's expression was grim. We will have to leave the station temporarily. The courier operates from a small trading post in the asteroid belt, approximately 4 hours away by shuttle. Jake thought about this plan. Leaving the station would be dangerous, but staying might be fatal. What about the prisoners being held here now? If we leave, the consortium might move them or worse. This warrior has located their holding area, Zixthera replied. The captives are being kept in a modified storage facility on level 8. We could attempt to free them before we leave. The plan was risky and complex, but it might be their only chance to stop the slavery operation. Jake made his decision. Let's do it. But we need to move fast. As they walked toward the cargo bay, neither of them noticed the small surveillance drone that had been following them through the corridors. The consortium already knew about their partnership, and the mercenaries were arriving ahead of schedule. The hunt was about to become much more dangerous. The storage facility on level 8 looked like any other cargo area from the outside. Heavy doors, warning signs about authorized personnel only, and the usual industrial lighting that made everything look gray and cold. But Zixthara's enhanced senses could detect something different about this place. This warrior can smell fear and despair from inside, the Kethvar whispered as they crouched behind a stack of shipping containers. Many beings are imprisoned beyond those doors. Jake checked his tablet one more time. According to the maintenance schedules he had accessed, only 2 guards were supposed to be on duty at this hour, but the surveillance drone that had been following them suggested the consortium knew about their plans. We need to assume they're expecting us, Jake said quietly. This could be a trap. Zixthara's claws extended slightly. This warrior is prepared for battle, but we must be careful not to harm the prisoners during any fighting. They moved closer to the storage facility, using the maze of cargo containers for cover. The main entrance had a security scanner that would record anyone who entered. But Jake knew about a maintenance hatch on the side wall that was used for emergency access. The hatch was locked, but Zixthara's claws made quick work of the simple mechanism. They slipped inside and found themselves in a narrow corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The air was stale and carried the sounds of machinery running somewhere deeper in the facility. Jake pulled out a small flashlight and checked the building plans he had downloaded earlier. The main holding area should be straight ahead past the control room. They crept forward through the maintenance corridor until they reached a junction. To the left was the control room where the guards would be stationed. To the right was the path to the prisoners. Zixthara gestured for Jake to wait, while the alien scout examined both directions. The Kethvar returned after a few minutes with disturbing news. This warrior counted at least 6 armed beings in the control room, not 2 as expected. They have military-grade weapons and are watching multiple screens that show the prisoner areas. Jake felt his heart sink. 6 guards means they definitely know we're coming. This is a trap. Perhaps, Zixthara agreed, but the prisoners are real. This warrior could hear their voices and see them on the security monitors. We cannot abandon them now, Jake thought quickly. They needed a distraction that would draw some of the guards away from the control room. Can you create a diversion somewhere else in the facility? Zixthara nodded. This warrior can trigger fire suppression systems in the storage areas. The guards will have to investigate or risk damage to valuable cargo. It was a good plan. Jake waited in the corridor while Zixthara disappeared deeper into the facility. Within minutes, alarm bells began ringing throughout the building. Emergency lights flashed red and automated voices announced a fire emergency in Storage Bay 7. Through the thin walls, Jake could hear the guards arguing about what to do. Finally, 4 of them left the control room to investigate the emergency. That left only 2 guards between Jake and the prisoners. Jake moved carefully toward the control room. The door was partly open and he could see inside. 2 Centauri mercenaries sat at a bank of monitors watching the security feeds. They looked bored and annoyed by the false alarm. Jake had never been a soldier like some humans, but his cargo work had made him strong, and his war experience had taught him to think under pressure. He also had one advantage the guards did not expect. They thought they were hunting a scared cargo supervisor, not someone with a Kethvar ally. He picked up a heavy wrench from a maintenance cart and approached the control room door. One of the guards was facing away from the entrance, focused on the security monitors. The other was speaking into a communication device, probably calling for updates on the fire alarm. Jake moved quickly and silently. He struck the first guard with the wrench, knocking the alien unconscious before it could raise an alarm. The second guard started to turn around, but Jake grabbed the mercenary's weapon and pointed it at the alien's head. "Don't move or make any noise," Jake ordered in a voice that surprised him with its steadiness. The guard raised its hand slowly. Jake used plastic restraints from the guard's own belt to tie the alien to its chair. Then he began studying the security monitors to locate the prisoners. What he saw made his stomach turn. Dozens of beings from multiple species were crowded into converted storage rooms. Men, women, and even children were packed together in spaces barely large enough for cargo containers. The conditions were horrible. Jake began unlocking the electronic doors that held the prisoners. One by one, the cells opened and confused captives stumbled into the corridors. Some were too weak to walk after days or weeks of imprisonment. Others helped carry the sick and injured toward the main exit. The 4 guards who had gone to investigate the fire alarm were returning now. Jake could hear their voices getting closer, as they realized the emergency was a diversion. He worked frantically to free the remaining prisoners while keeping watch on the security monitors. Zixthara appeared in the corridor outside the control room, moving like a shadow among the freed prisoners. The Kethvar helped organize the escape, guiding groups toward emergency exits while watching for threats. "This warrior has contacted the courier service," Zixthara reported. "They are sending a ship to extract us and the evidence. But we have perhaps 10 minutes before the mercenaries arrive." The last group of prisoners was moving toward the exit when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, but the brief darkness had allowed someone to enter the facility undetected. Plasma fire erupted from the main corridor, as the returning guards opened fire on the escaping prisoners. Jake could hear screams and the sound of running feet as captives tried to find cover. "Get them out of here," Jake shouted to Zixthara as he grabbed the unconscious guard's weapon. "I'll hold off the mercenaries," but Zixthara was already moving. The HFY warrior flowed through the corridor like liquid death, its claws and natural weapons making short work of the surprised guards. These mercenaries had expected to fight a frightened human, not one of the galaxy's apex predators. Jake emerged from the control room to find the battle was already over. Zixthara stood among the fallen guards, breathing heavily but uninjured. The freed prisoners were streaming toward the exit, many of them crying with relief and gratitude. "The courier ship is approaching Dock 17, Zixthara reported. "We must go now." Jake copied all the evidence from the facility's computers onto his datapad, then destroyed the security records that might identify the freed prisoners. They ran through the station corridors toward the docking bay, helping the slowest captives keep up with the group. Behind them, alarm bells were ringing throughout New Babylon Station as the consortium discovered their operation had been exposed. But it was too late. The evidence was already on its way to the Galactic Council, and nearly 80 prisoners had been freed from slavery. At the docking bay, Jake turned to Zixthara as the courier ship prepared to depart. "What will you do now? The HFY clans won't welcome you back after breaking your contract." The alien warrior looked at Jake with something like satisfaction in its yellow eyes. This warrior has learned that true honor is not about following rules blindly. It is about doing what is right, even when it is difficult. Jake smiled. "Does that mean you're looking for a new line of work?" Zixthara considered this. Perhaps this warrior could learn to hunt criminals instead of innocents. "Would you be interested in a partnership?" As their ship jumped to hyperspace carrying evidence that would destroy the slavery network forever, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. A few days ago, he was a simple cargo supervisor. Now he was part of something much larger and more important. The predator who had come to kill him had become the best partner he could have asked for. Together, they would make sure that justice reached every corner of the galaxy, one hunt at a time.